None of the parties involved in the fight between the Elite or CM Punk have spoken out as of yet publicly, but that all might be changing very soon, according to Wade Keller of PWTorch. He has some reporting on this that you definitely don't want to miss, but biggest story in pro wrestling right now has been the fallout from the brawl out after All Out. Every single person in the entire professional wrestling world has been talking about it. Everyone has an opinion, but we have yet to hear publicly directly from either party involved or All Elite Wrestling. The closest we've gotten to a public response or a public note from anyone has been Tony Khan going on AEW Dynamite and right after All Out and vacating the AEW World and AEW Trios Tag Team Championships. Outside of that, there's been no reference to either the Elite or CM Punk on AEW television. They have been taken out of the opening video packages. They've been taken out of graphics for promotional events. So it's one of those things where they're just kind of waiting to see how things play out and waiting to see how this independent investigation that they've commissioned is going to go. According to Wade Keller, though, we might be hearing from somebody very soon. He doesn't specifically say who, but there's an interesting note here. He says, quote, "I will say, I'm expecting the silence of this whole situation, to end soon as far as this goes. This being the mess between the Elite and CM Punk. So keep your eyes peeled to the ground. I will say there should be a breaking of silence on the issue. I'll put it that way. Probably this week, but by early next week, I think it will probably be, or most likely be this week." So Wade Keller is saying that very soon, essentially, we are going to hear from somebody publicly about the brawl out from All Out. And it could either clear some things up or it'll just make a big, already big mess even bigger. Now, there's been a lot made of this mess between the Elite and CM Punk. Now, Punk obviously went out there after All Out and just shot completely off on the Elite, on Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page as well, although Hangman was obviously not involved in the brawl. But following that, him and the Young Bucks had a fight backstage along with Ace Steel. This week we learned that there were people who were suspended who have been brought back from their suspension, most notably Michael Nakazawa, Brandon Cutler, and Christopher Daniels, as well as Pat Buck, were all suspended because they were involved in breaking the fight up. When a situation like this arises, when you have a fight in the workplace like this, the best thing to do sometimes is to get anyone who has been physically involved in any way, regardless for the reason, get them kind of one away from television and away from the situation for a bit until things are sorted out, even though they definitely or probably didn't do anything wrong, right? That's just kind of how this is common practice and best practice, I should say. So they're back. The Young Bucks are still suspended. Kenny Omega is still suspended. And CM Punk and Ace Steel, we don't know actually what their future might entail, given the fact that it has not come out that they've been suspended. Punk is obviously injured. We don't know whether or not there's been communication between AEW and CM Punk, so that could definitely be a situation here. As far as what this could be, what this announcement could be, here's the thing. I think most likely, this is complete speculation, right, based off of what we know. I think that there's a chance that if AEW, the company, publicly comments on this, it is going to be, the likelihood is it's an announcement that CM Punk has been fired. Because the only other reason AEW would comment on this would be to appease their TV partners and say that, and just kind of put a statement out there saying, hey, we're going to investigate this and just basic PR stuff. I don't see that happening because if they were going to do that, they likely would have done it by now because that's something you do a week out from the thing, not 2-3 weeks out from the initial situation. So I don't see that being the breaking of silence there. If AEW, the company, is the one who breaks the silence, I likely think it's going to be them saying that CM Punk is no longer with the company because that is partially what we've been hearing. And I mean, the other thing that it could be, and this kind of speaks to a little bit to a report that Sean Ross Sapp put out in Fightful Select on FightfulSelect.com. By the way, it's a great report. It's like literally like a few thousand words of him just laying out the entire situation, beginning to end, from everyone's perspective. Highly recommend you guys go check that out, FightfulSelect.com. But in that report, he noted that how on the Young Bucks side, he noted how when the brawl happened, there was this report that CM Punk and the Young Bucks were obviously cursing at each other as the Young Bucks were leaving the locker room, and CM Punk threatened apparently some sort of legal action, or there were legal implications of what he was saying. And it's possible that if Punk comments publicly on it, that it's going to be that. It's going to be him saying that he's going to take legal action against somebody in this situation, whether it's the Bucks, whether it's AEW, to be determined. But I mean, that's like for me what I see as a public kind of thing. Is it also possible that Punk just kind of pops off on Twitter or something? Sure, why not? Who knows? Who knows? That's the biggest thing. We don't know. All we could do is kind of sit back and armchair quarterback this thing. But at the end of the day, someone's going to say something pretty soon, apparently. And when they do, we're going to be talking all about it. The other note I wanted to say, by the way, that Sean Ross Sapp piece, I really do want to plug that because it's got so much information about this mess. The other notable thing is that, so Mega, who is the chief legal officer of AEW, was, according to the Young Bucks side of the story, I want to be clear about that. According to the Young Bucks side of the story, they approached Mega, who is the chief legal officer of AEW, before they went into CM Punk's locker room. And they told her they were going to go talk to him. So she was around this whole situation when it happened, when it broke down. And I think regardless of what everyone's saying, I think the person whose opinion likely matters the most to Tony Khan in this whole situation is going to end up being Mega, because she was at least around and she's an independent kind of party in all of this. And it's going to be interesting to see like what I doubt she's obviously going to say anything publicly, but it's going to be interesting to see just how this unfolds. Like, there's a reason why this is the most talked about thing in pro wrestling right now. It's just because there's just so much intrigue, and it has so many implications, whether it's the EVP titles of the Young Bucks, where CM Punk was the world champion getting vacated, getting injured, and then him possibly getting fired a year after he had the biggest debut in the company's history. The video games coming out. These guys are all on the cover. There's so many implications to it. And that's why it's the biggest story in wrestling right now. But y'all let me know what you guys think about this. Who's going to speak out? What are they going to say? Let me know in the comments section below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Until next time, keep it real.